Yeah, the one sad thing is, and being in the medical field, I know how this is that these doctors, if they work for these big conglomerate medical places, which most of them are, they're owned by BlackRock, Vanguard, all these little entities. They have to follow the policies and protocols that are put in place. And so, they don't, they have to prescribe, they have to offer you the statin. Doesn't mean you have to take it, but they have to offer it. So I asked him a few years ago, are you still taking the statin? He said, nope, I threw it in the trash. And I said, well, that's good. Oh, and because he was also type 2 diabetic, which is common with long term use of statins. And so that's gone. And I said, are you still prescribing it? And he says, I have to.
Today I have Laura Russell with me. Laura, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Good. All right. So, Laura, why don't we get started by you telling us a little bit about yourself and how you've eventually come to the carnivore diet and so forth?
Sure, sure. So, right now, I'm a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for over 22 years. What started me on this lifestyle was actually having been 313 pounds when I was 20. So in 1991, and I went to a medically trained horrific doctor, which I'm very happy now that I did because I was so young that it kind of got me shifted mindset to be a little bit more questioning and researching my own stuff way before the internet was out there. So at 313 pounds, my doctor filled out a prescription for Lipitor. And I was a young kid. I just thought this is going to be like an antibiotic. You take it 7 days. So I asked him, and he said, oh, no, this is the old days of the paper script where they handed it to you. And he's like, no, this is forever. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. I don't think at 20 I want to live the rest of my life out of a bottle. So that prompted me to go to our local library in my small town, and I read every medical journal, every veterinarian journal I could find from about 1850 up to about 1910, because I knew enough at that point that I knew around the 1910s is kind of when Rockefeller and Carnegie and all those people kind of hijacked the medical system and the schools. And so I didn't really want to read propaganda. I wanted just the real stuff. So that's what I did for several weeks. Made a lot of Xerox copies, which tells you my age, of the stuff in the books, and just studied up on all of it. After about 4 weeks, I cleaned out everything in my house. Um, all the white breads, potatoes, pastas, chips, rice, sugar, everything white. So basically, that's when I started keto. It was the day before Thanksgiving in 1991. My triglycerides at that first doctor's appointment that year was at least 1,000. That's as high as their meter went. They were not doing the hemoglobin A1C test at that point. It had not been, wasn't utilized at that time. So came back 9 months later, and I had lost 153 pounds. They did my a repeat blood test for my lipids, and everything was in normal range, and my triglycerides were down to 33. So when he came in the room, of course, he was very proud of himself because he was like, "Oh, the statins fixed it." And I was like, no, I didn't fill your prescription. And he literally said to me, well, you're going to die a fat ass. Now, granted, I was 150 pounds, 154 pounds at that point. Uh, and so I was like, no. So I lost over 200 pounds that day because I gave him back his script and I fired him on the spot. And I did, if I did it today, it would be differently. But at the time, I just said, shame on you for being somebody that we're supposed to look up to and listen to. And I had to go out and figure out how the human body works because you couldn't. You just wanted to put me on medication. And he basically said that what you put in your body has nothing to do with how your body looks, reacts, all those things, which I'm a muscle car type person. I rebuild motors. So I'm like, I have to run turbo blue in my Corvette. I had a 327 out of a 68 Corvette that I rebuilt and put in a 77 Camaro, and I'm like, I have to run turbo blue in that. I can't run diesel. I'm like, so it has to make some difference. And to me, our bodies are very similar to the combustion motor. And of course, he thought I had three heads, and I'm like, that's okay. So he was fired. I continued to eat that way. I went to nursing school, and during my RN nursing school, I actually was at a large university hospital in 2000, it might have been 2007. And his name came across. I was working on the open heart floor, and he's got a very unique name. I knew that there was absolutely no way there was two of these people on the planet. And so I did ask my clinical, person. I'm like, he may not want me because I fired him. She says, "How long ago?" And I said, 1991. She goes, "He won't even remember you." So, and she was right. He really didn't. That first day, the next day when we extubated him, took the wires out and everything. Then I reminded him what he said, that I was going to die, a fat ass. And then he was like, I remember. And I said, here, how long have you been taking your statin? And he says 87 or 88, because they came out in 87. I think it was 88. And I said, you are still eating country crock, which is what you told me to do. You're not eating eggs. You're not eating fat. You're not eating meat. And you're up here and you just had a five-way bypass. So you wanted me to go on this medication to block the effects of cholesterol on the body. And yet here I am thriving, and here you are having a five-way bypass with a bunch of calcium in your arteries. And so he did listen, and then eventually, later on, he did. My mother sees a doctor right next door to where he is working, and he asked for my phone number. So I did eventually call him, and then led him to keto, which I think he's 190 pounds, and he's like 6'4", 6'5". He's pretty tall. So I kind of did that for about 26 years. I did the keto, raised my kids, had a pregnancy in there, was a keto pregnancy, had no issues, only gained like 8 pounds with that pregnancy, and did very well until the keto treats came out. So the last 2 years of my keto adventure was, the Quest bars and all these keto treats. And I had gotten lazy and didn't read the ingredients on them because I just trusting that it said keto. And I destroyed my gut. I had cystic acne. I had anxiety, depression, OCD was off the chart. Joint pain was so bad. Um, I'm trying to think. Sleep. I had horrible sleep. Hair was falling out. So I was sitting on the couch scrolling, and a Joe Rogan podcast came across, and here's this big dude on there, and it ended up being Dr. Baker, and he was discussing carnivore. And I thought, well, this kind of makes sense because I know I'm lactose intolerant. My dad was three-quarters Cherokee Indian, so we tend to have lactose intolerance. And I'm like, yeah, I am for sure that his parents were definitely not chasing around cauliflower and broccoli. They were traveling, following the herds. So that's when I decided, yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'm an all or none personality. I don't go into anything nice and slow. And the very next day, it was just pure on carnivore, which wasn't horrible because I had been keto. It's not like I came from standard American diet to that.
You know, I feel like there's so many people that found the carnivore diet because of Dr. Baker or even Dr. Ken Berry, both of them. You know what? Let's do this. If you're watching this video right now and you started doing the carnivore diet because of Dr. Baker or Dr. Berry, let us know down in the comments. Just say Dr. Baker or say Dr. Berry. I'm really interested in knowing how many people out there actually started because of either Dr. Baker or Dr. Berry. So let us know in the comments and let's see how many people have actually started because of them.
So that's been over 6 years ago. And then about 3 years ago, I transitioned from uh, carnivore into lion diet. And that is because I have a lot of allergies. So a lot of histamine responses with egg whites, um, milk. Of course, I don't do that. Chicken. I can do lamb. I can do deer, beef, any of the ruminant animals I can eat. Anything else, chicken, turkey, pork. I can't do pork. I can do like half a piece of bacon, but if I do a whole piece of bacon, I'm in trouble. So I have to stay away from the pork rinds because I'll eat the whole bag and then I'll wake up with my knuckles being sore again. So, um, but I'm so glad that I kind of went into carnivore when I did. I had a major surgery that took 7.5 hours. So I did 7-day fast, water and salt, did the surgery. That day, that evening, I drank bone broth that I had made. And then I did another 7-day fast, healed extremely quickly. Nobody could believe it because I would have been 49 at the time, 48, 49. Um, did perfectly and just kind of stayed this way. So I love it. Like this is the easiest thing. People are always like, "Isn't it hard to eat like that?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not." You make sure you have the meat thawed out, or if you're going to use like an air fryer, you can put frozen stuff in there. I'm like, it takes 5 minutes and my food is done. And if you eat one or two times a day, it's not expensive either. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's too expensive." And I'm like, I don't throw steak away. I don't throw hamburger away. But back when I was eating lettuce and, spinach and stuff like that, you always ended up at the end of the week throwing stuff away that had rotted. So I went through menopause, really with flying colors, anxiety, depression. I was able to get off of my medication. I decreased it down myself because the doctor refused to work with me on that. And I'm like, okay, I don't care if you're going to work with me because it's my body and I know how to decrease medications being a nurse. So I'm like, I'll just do it without you. It just took me 6 years. I just recently got depression, anxiety taken off of my diagnosis sheet because I don't know if anybody out there has had that trouble, but once you've got a diagnosis on there, they want to keep it on there. And so that's kind of where I've done it. And then the type of nursing that I'm doing now is home health nursing. So I get to utilize 33 years of eating what I would call, holistic type eating, eating with the seasons. Like when I was keto, I would eat with the seasons. So if lettuce wasn't in, I wasn't eating lettuce. I don't eat tomatoes because they don't like me, but cucumber, same thing. Any of that stuff, I didn't eat it if it was out of season. It's not like I went to the store and bought vegetables because we have a garden. Um, but I utilize that in all of my daily taking care of my patients. If I go in, even the sickest person that I'm like, there's no help for this person, it's too late. And I try to like not integrate, like, you can fix some of this stuff if you would do this. But inevitably, 99.999% of the patients get a good nutritional dosing of keto, ketovore, or carnivore, low carb at least. And I would say probably 60% of them are pretty good at doing something, cleaning up, getting rid of stuff. I've had several patients get off medications. I had two patients that are no longer diabetic, that were able to reverse their diabetes after 25 years of being diabetic by following ketovore. And their endocrinologist was not happy with me, and he did call me at my office and threatened to go after my nursing license, which I welcomed him to do because I said my scope of practice says nutritional education. It doesn't say that I have to follow American Diabetic, does it mean American Heart Society, doesn't matter. It says nutritional education. And so that was like 2 years ago. And I'm still waiting. He hasn't done it because there's nothing, that I've done that's illegal. So I'm very careful. But I do enjoy using that um, daily in my practice. And I also do talks. I go around. There's some different churches in the area that have had me come and do talks anywhere from 15 people to I've had over 100 people, to where even some doctors, chiropractors, a pharmacist, stuff like that. Because I think, as you probably have seen, it's kind of everywhere now. People are starting to be like, okay, this isn't just a fad. They said the same thing about keto. Oh, it's just a fad. Well, I don't think a fad is 28 years. I wouldn't consider that a fad. I don't think 6 years carnivore is a fad. Um, and had I maybe stayed clean keto, I had somebody ask me, "Do you think you'd have went carnivore anyway?" And I said, "I don't know. I can just say that because my gut, was destroyed by the fake sugars and the maltodextrin that's in a lot of those keto treats, I didn't have really any choice but to do that." And now, if I try to reintroduce any of those things, it doesn't go well. So I'm like, why would I do that to myself? I just don't usually do that. And then another thing is that I had hundreds of quarts of tallow that I had rendered down from all the years of, eating high fat, because with the keto, I was probably a low fat keto in the beginning, the first few years, and then figured out like I have no energy. So I need, fat, and had bumped it up. So then as I started thinking about the food we put in our body, I started thinking about, well, what about the lotions? What about your shampoo? What about your deodorant? What about, your toothpaste? Mm. And that's when the fluoride and all that, I was like, "Oh boy." And that's when I started making all of my own products. And because, I make lotions, shampoo bars, deodorants, beard butter, all these things, um, candles that are natural, with just essential oil for scent, make it out of tallow, because I had all these hundreds of quarts of rendered tallow. And so now I also do that on the side, making stuff like that. So, um, yeah. And then I love to deer hunt. So I'm a deer hunter. We fish, we do a lot of that stuff. So we're able to get a lot of our own meat, and we process everything ourselves. So we're fortunate. I live on the west central part of Illinois. So down and complete opposite side is Chicago, is basically closer to Iowa, but we have a lot of organic farmers around here. So we're pretty fortunate of being able to get meat. And we kind of know, what they're being fed. So I think that's been very, very helpful living where I live. I think it could be hard for some people if they live in different areas, but yeah, for me, um, yeah, there's definitely no going back. I like this, and my husband is not carnivore. I would call him half standard American diet and half kind of caveman diet, where he follows the seasons, paleo-ish, I guess you would call it, with a few no Doritos anymore. He read the back of that and gave that up, but a few Oreos now and then. So, but that's pretty much my backstory.
That's an incredible story. I think, looking back at it, there were two things that caught me early on that you were talking about. The first thing, 153 pounds in 9 months. That's amazing.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's I know everybody loses weight at different levels, but that's just amazing.
Sure.
And then the other thing that really caught me was how ironic it was for your doctor that he didn't want you to, he wanted you to be on a statin, didn't want you to do the diet that you were doing that was actually losing weight, but yet
Yeah.
he's the one that actually had problems. And it, it's unfortunate, but I'm
Yeah.
glad
It
that he
is.
ended up listening to you and
Yeah. Me too.
getting himself back on track.
Yeah. Yeah. The one sad thing is, and being in the medical field, I know how this is that these doctors, if they work for these big conglomerate medical places, which most of them are, they're owned by BlackRock, Vanguard, all these little entities, they have to follow the policies and protocols that are put in place. And so, they don't, they have to prescribe, they have to offer you the statin. Doesn't mean you have to take it. but they have to offer it. So I asked him a few years ago, are you still taking the statin? He said, nope, I threw it in the trash. And I said, well, that's good. Oh, and because he was also type 2 diabetic, which is common with long term use of statins. And so that's gone. And I said, are you still prescribing it? And he says, I have to. And I said, you choose to work for the facility you work for. Because if you've been a doctor, you've paid off your loans. You could get with three other like minded doctors, get out on your own, get your negligence insurance, and you could do just fine without being under these big. You're not going to be, you're not going to make $6 million a year, but I mean, you would have a good life. You would have a comfortable life. But um, I see most of them will not do that. So, which that's too bad. And maybe I think we're starting to see like metabolic doctors come up. You got your functional holistic doctors. Some of them are doing a little bit better too. So, um, the other really, really good benefit, I'm very, very strong willed already. Um, but during 2020, 21, 22 ish, um, I'm very thankful that I was carnivore because I refused to take part in what was going on during that time frame in the medical institution that I worked in, to the point of where they had several doctors, pharmacists, and nurses that they fired, and I was the first, which is fine. I'm an old union steward, so I said okay. And I had always said I didn't. I'm not against somebody doing that, but I'm against the forcing of any procedure, any medical, any of that. I always said it needs to be um, you decide what happens to your body, not anybody else, not a government, not a place of employment. And so there was a month that we were out walking, in front of this hospital. And I mean, the emails, the text messages, the phone call, I mean, it was constant. And even like the last week that I was there, before that happened, I mean, if you have somebody that's going into open heart surgery as your nurse, you really probably don't want them being bombarded with like 30 emails threatening to come rip them out of the operating room, walk them out the door. You don't need that kind of extra stress. But I was able to withstand that and was like, go ahead, do what you got to do because I'm going to stand my ground. And I do think that having, enough fat in the body, in the brain, doing stuff like that, I really think that helped me kind of stay strong to my beliefs. And, they had to hire everybody back and pay them all the back pay and all the things that went with it. So we definitely won that little battle, at least for now.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you, you said that you've evolved all the way to that now you're on the lion diet. And you said that
Mhm.
you like to hunt and so you hunt deer. So I'm assuming you eat a lot of venison. But why
Yep,
don't you give us a little background of like what a typical day of eating looks like for you on your lion diet?
sure. So with mine, I'm very high fat. So as I have evolved over time, I've followed somebody that's a nutritionist who's a very skinny gal. That's all I'll say. And it was protein sparing, modified, blah, blah, blah. And I tried that and I gained 11 pounds. And I was like, nope. So that, knowing how the body works, I'm like, it's too much protein for me. So my liver's converting it into glucose. And so I opted to switch myself to 80/20. So I do 80% fat, 20% protein. And it's not an exact science because I do not weigh anything. I'm not messing with none of that. I'm not doing any of that. So I basically buy ribeye fat by itself, just ribeye fat. Of course, I buy ribeyes and hamburger and stuff, but I buy the ribeye fat, I cut it up, and I basically do half a pound to a pound. And I will crispy fry that either in cast iron or you can do it in an air fryer, but I really prefer the cast iron. And then I salt that with Redmond's real salt and or Baja Gold's another good one. And that is like that's my main course. And then I may have like 5 to 6 ounces of a hamburger or steak or deer or lamb, and I can do egg yolks with that occasionally. I don't do a lot of egg yolks, but I cannot do the egg whites. Um, and I do that every single day, at least once a day. If I feel like require more, then I will have a second. It's usually not as much, it's a smaller amount. But most of the time, I find with that higher fat that I don't require a second meal. And I I sleep excellent. I change up my eating window, so I may one day eat breakfast and not eat lunch, supper, go to bed, and I may not eat again till 2 o'clock the next day and do my fasting So I kind of allow my body to not get used to any one type of fasting and eating window. I kind of change it up every day. And then here recently, I don't know if you know who Darth Carnivore is. His name's Charlie. I think maybe
Mhm.
okay. He had talked about some dry fasting, and I was like, I don't know. I'm a nurse, I'm like, what about the kidneys? What about this? And then I was like, I've done all this other fasting. It can't be that bad. So the Monday, I think it was Monday, I did a 24-hour dry fast, and I was like, that was pretty good. So there are days during the week that I may just not eat for 2 days. Like if I feel like I'm getting um, a cold, or if I'm getting kind of sinusy, or if I'm taking care of a lot of patients, here a few months back, I don't know where you're at, if you guys had this, but we had people with strep throat and some kind of weird pneumonia and bronchitis and all this stuff. And I'm like, I am not getting that. So I did a lot of fasting, and then I do a lot of natural, I make my own like elderberry tincture, and I make oregano oil, which is an antibiotic, and colloidal silver and stuff like that. So I did that. But that's what my days look like. It's very simple. It takes 5 minutes, which is the best part of it. You don't have to sit around and think about what sides are you going to make. I had somebody go, "What about your poor husband?" And I go, "What about my poor husband?" And they're like, "Well, what about his sides?" And I'm like, "Well, two things. He's a big boy. And two, I was like, he was 49 when we met. He was a bachelor, so he didn't starve prior to that. So what we normally do is like if I'm going to eat, that day, then I take care of whatever the meat's going to be. Like I may get out, a brisket and put it in the pressure. I may get out deer steaks or deer loins or something like that. And then it's not that I won't throw him a salad together, because I will, but I'm just like, you poor thing, you're going to eat this, with seed oil dressing on top of it. But he likes it. That's what he wants. And I'm like, that's okay. So that's kind of how we do it. He kind of takes care of his sides. So, and that's kind of what's worked out for us. And he's used to me eating this way. My whole family's used to it. I don't get looks. I always have these kind of shirts on that say, like meat heals, carnivore. So if we go out anywhere, they just kind of know she's one of those crazy people.
What about for drink? Are you just strictly water, or do you have like coffee or anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah, so I generally drink water. I only drink to thirst. I don't set a certain amount of water that I need to drink. And then I buy organic coffee from Melaleuca. I have somebody that I get it through. I don't even know who it is anymore. It's been so many years. And I will do half a cup of coffee to half a cup of water with half a salty packet of Coco Loco, which I can do now without, it doesn't make me have like sweet cravings or anything. In the past, it did if I did something sweet, but it doesn't bother me. And then I will do club soda once in a while for just the carbonation, and that doesn't seem to bother me. But that's it. I can't do milk, so I haven't tried the raw milk because we can do that uh, in Iowa. We can't do it in Illinois because we're a gangster state. So, but I can travel over to Iowa if I wanted to, where my mom lives. But I knowing that I'm lactose intolerant, I'm just not gonna push my luck. So, if you feel really, really good, you don't ever wanna go back to where you're scratching, itching, you've got the sinus, you got the joint problems. Never wanna have cystic acne again. I mean, it was so bad, and I'm not a makeup wearer, so it was there. It's kinda like guys when they have acne, well, it's just right there. Girls, always try to cover it up, and I was like, "I don't wear makeup. I wouldn't know how to put it on if I had it."
Okay. Um, so let's talk a little bit about your YouTube channel. Explain to us what the channel name is, and I'll have it in the description as well of this video. But tell us what your channel name is, kind of plug that a little bit, and what you do with your channel. I know you do a lot of live streams and stuff like that. So just kind of explain that stuff for us.
Sure. So, my YouTube channel is at Healthy Carnivore. And so every single Monday, I do a live stream, and it's going over like last week, or this week, Monday, it was the three top childhood diseases, which all three were metabolic diseases, which makes me sick. But I go over that kind of thing. I've went over different ones with diabetes, natural alternatives to different things, and so I do that every single Monday. Every other Tuesday on my channel, I go live with Russ from Homesick Buckeye. He's got a show called "We Be Grillin', Baby," and so we do that, and then. Um, Occasionally, I will do some just like off the cuff. I may be making products for I make, like I said, like the tallow lotions, the tooth powder, and stuff like that. I will do videos showing how to make it because I sell it on my website, but I want everybody to you can make it yourself. You don't have to buy it from me. Here's how you can make it for yourself because it's great gifts. That's what I did for years was and I still give it to my patients. I give it away to my patients and their families and my family. But I show people like how they can do that. I used to show some of like my cooking, but you can only show how to cook ribeye fat and a steak and a hamburger just so many ways. And I was like, because I used to do keto cooking live on Facebook years ago. Um, and those recipes were super involved, but I don't wanna spend that kinda time in there. I know this is gonna sound really crazy, but my other thing that I do is for all of my patients, I crochet lap blankets for them, and when they graduate from home health, I give them an Afghan. And so I've got all this extra time. So I make my products. I work with clients on my website and uh, crochet blankets for my patients in my free time. And then I garden. I help my husband garden his garden because he's still eating the green stuff. So that's what I do.
Okay. And we'll have a link for your website as well for people if anybody wants to check it out. Anybody just doesn't want to, because a lot of people don't necessarily want to go through the work of actually doing something
Yeah,
themselves. So maybe they'll want to buy it from you
yeah,
instead of actually doing the work. So we'll have that link
yeah.
there as well. So let me ask you one last question here. Um, if somebody was looking at starting, whether it's keto, ketovore, carnivore, line diet, whatever, they were looking at wanting to get started, what would be your best advice for them?
The first thing that I tell everybody, all the clients I've worked with in the past, is I always have them write down their why do they want to do this? Because I find for most people, it needs to come from a place of pain or loss, something like that. Not everybody. Some people just get to the point where they're like, I don't like my gut feeling like this. But a lot of times it's because they've lost a family member to a metabolic disease, or they've been diagnosed with several, or they have pain. But I have them write down their why. And then I have a personality test that I actually can give them. And they just have to answer 10 questions. And it kind of leads you to figure out if they are somebody who can transition a little bit at a time or if they're like my personality that can just jump into it tomorrow. And so that's what I do with my people is we try to figure out um, because even I mean, I've always known I'm just an all or a none. That's just the way I am. Not that that's better than anybody else. If they can do the small transitions, that's great. I'm the kind of person that if I had one M&M, the whole bag is mine. I will fight you for it. Not probably not today because that stuff looks like poison to me, but at the time back in the day, it would have. So yeah, so I just kind of work with people to see where they're at, ask them what their goal is, what they're trying to get to. And there's no shame. I've had people go, "Oh, I just really want to lose 30 pounds." Okay, that's okay. I do let them know that a lot of times until your body is healed, you're going to hang on to some of those pounds. That's the way the body saves itself. We have an innate ability of doing that. So sometimes I have to talk those people off the edge, like, yes, you haven't lost any weight. And I actually gained 10 pounds when I went carnivore and just about had to go buy new nursing clothes because they were getting a little snug. And I changed nothing, and just one day that was it, and I was like, boom, and it just dropped. And I think that was probably the gut was the last thing that I really needed to heal, and so I think that's kind of when that happened. So, and then I have Marco Polo groups. Charlie, Darth Carnivores in one of those groups. Me and Robin Heron, which is Carnivore's grandma, we do some Marco Polo groups together. And so basically, we can talk with those people every single day. They can ask questions, do stuff like that. Um, and helps encourage, we're into exercise, different things like that. So it's kind of a nice community of people, and they're not all together. We have some groups that have three, four, five, some that's just three, two, stuff like that. So we don't want to get too large in each of those groups to where you can't ever get your questions answered either. So, but I also do that with my people. But I've had really good luck. A couple of the churches, and this is older ladies. One lady, I saw her 6 weeks after she started carnivore, and she's definitely 78, 79, and was walking with a cane and had really bad knee arthritis. And she said to me that first day, she said, "The next time I see you, I'm not going to have this cane." And about 6 weeks later, I went back to do a talk there with more people. And she walked up the steps and came in and gave me a hug, and she did not have her cane. And that was the best when you see somebody improve. So, yeah, I was very happy with that. So, that's really the main thing is trying to help people get to the healthiest that they can. And I am a anti big government kind of person, so I don't want to be dependent on medications. I don't want anybody to be dependent on them if they can get off of them. There are some cases where, you had your thyroid taken out, you're going to have thyroid medication. There are certain things. I'm not a total, you don't have, you're never going to take any medication, but I like to try to see if you can heal what you can, get to the best that you can. And if we can get your medications dropped down lower or completely gone, then I think that's the best thing I can do to help with people.
Okay. So, Laura, this has been a great conversation. Thanks for talking with me today. And I look forward to catching up with you again in the future.
All right, sounds good.